Well, hello. Thank you to the people at BPI for inviting me out here today. I'm super excited for the opportunity to share with you some of my thoughts on what makes Bitcoin valuable. I think this is a really important question and is at the heart of, it's the heart of the matter, right? Why is this crazy thing that we're here all talking about valuable to humanity? I have a nuanced view on what makes Bitcoin valuable, which is often different than a lot of other people in the space. I am, for instance, pretty skeptical of narratives that Bitcoin will quite literally take over the world. I'm not someone who believes that to be the case, but I also think it's a very important technology, a very important piece of financial technology, which does have great purchase on matters of human freedom and liberty in the world. And I wanted to give a different perspective and really a kind of a view into how I think about it as CEO at TBD and in my work on Bitcoin at Block more generally. I believe that Bitcoin is quite literally the best way that humans have so devised to price what I like to refer to as political risk in the world. It is a technology that gives to us a digital commodity money with a fixed supply schedule, all these things that you've already heard in previous talks. It's censorship resistance and its stateless nature. That's very, very important. Like the ability for a technology like this to be beyond the control of any individual, entity, organization, or state provides like a pretty interesting opportunity for a world that is increasingly, especially in this day and age and given what's happening, politically unstable. And in any politic, there always is a risk of instability. We've certainly seen already the great utility that Bitcoin has provided in places like Cyprus, Venezuela, my human rights activists in countries like Russia and Ukraine. Bitcoin has been a freedom money, the difference between quite literally life and death for people in those parts of the world. And I continue to believe that Bitcoin is going to grow in value. I'm very bullish on the role that it can play in the world. But I also don't think that like the real question here is like when will it replace the U.S. dollar or when will it replace the euro? I don't really think these are the attendant relevant questions. I think the real question is how will Bitcoin fundamentally change the way in which like advanced economies and capital markets can interact with this new global market for political risk. Here in the United States, it's very clear to me that that is almost the only real use case that it has been used for up until now, speculating on its future value, which, by the way, I don't think speculation is a dirty word. I think we speculate on a lot of things. Life insurance is a form of speculation, based on actuarial tables. We do a lot of that kind of thing in advanced markets, and it makes a lot of sense, right? As we have more wealth, we have more opportunities to think about the things that can go wrong, and we have ways and vehicles to price those possibilities. And Bitcoin does that. We see lots of evidence of this. We see the premium that Bitcoin gets in parts of the world where political instability has come to the fore, where it diverges from the global market, sometimes even significantly in local markets, really showing that there is increasing understanding that this is, in fact, a freedom money. Now, I think that as it continues to grow into this use case, there will be other use cases for Bitcoin. In particular, I think a really interesting short to medium term development will be Bitcoin's use as a remittance asset in the world. In situations where foreign exchange is already something that you have to contend with, the instability of prices is not necessarily the biggest blocker. I mean, if you're sending money from the United States to Kenya, you're already contending with the exchange rate between the US dollar and the Kenyan shilling. Going into Bitcoin for maybe a few seconds to facilitate a trade is not something which is exposing you to a great amount of pricing risk. And so that also adds utility and makes it even more useful as a freedom money, even more useful as a way to think about pricing political risk. And there's a lot of political risks out there. We've already heard of some of them in some of these talks. Obviously, central banking can pose a form of political risk. The history of this kind of thing is often burned in our minds. We all know the story of what happened during the Weimar Republic and the collapse of the Deutschmark, which may have had something to do with the political climate that came after. And I don't think we should shy away from that. We should be, in fact, pretty attendant, right, or attuned to the risks that central banking can provide. That said, I'm not a person that necessarily believes that they're going away. I do think that some elasticity in our money supplies is probably important for advanced economies to control for economic shocks and things like that. But let's also take stock of the fact that a technology like Bitcoin that can represent a way to price the risk of those sorts of systems breaking down may have a very good stabilizing effect on the limits of policymakers to abuse central bank policy, knowing that there is an off-ramp, that there is this universal global off-ramp onto a technology like Bitcoin. And so I think the future for this technology is I think it's assured at this point, given the momentum that it has. But I also think it has a long way to go. I think we're early in this conversation. My company is certainly doing a lot of work around trying to make the applications that we're talking about here easier and more approachable and able to contend with the realities of regulation, the realities of on-ramping and off-ramping into the Bitcoin ecosystem from fiat currency-based payment systems. So I think there's a lot more to come, and I believe this is a growing space. But I don't think for those of you who've come to this, and you can clearly see there's something going on. There's Bitcoin ETFs now being traded on the New York Stock Exchange. So this is clearly not a thing that's going away. But for those of you who've been turned off by visions of the complete removal of the state and think that those kinds of narratives are a little bit overwrought, I'm here to tell you that you don't have to think that to believe that Bitcoin is an amazing emancipatory technology that has the potential to bring about positive change in the world, to even have a positive influence on existing monetary and payment regimes, to be used as an international remittance vehicle, to be used as a way to hedge against the abuses of regimes that seek to use financial repression as a tool to maintain political control. I would say to you that you can still think that this is a remarkable technology without going all the way into some kind of anarchist utopian vision where we dispense with the trappings of civilization. So I'm a big proponent of that view. I think that we are well on our way to advancing this technology to a place where a lot more. I guess what I would say is I think the best is yet to come with Bitcoin as the market around it matures, as the technologies around it matures, as it becomes more accessible in more parts of the world with more developed on-ramps and off-ramps. And so I'm here to say that I think Bitcoin is here to stay. And I'm super happy to be here to have these conversations here in places like this where there's lots of really smart people thinking about this and how to navigate the challenges that we have, especially here in the United States. The policy conversation is very important. I certainly don't want to see us shoot ourselves in the foot here, because I think that a technology like Bitcoin is actually really good for American interests. I think it's a technology that I think tracks very closely to core American values of human freedom, and free markets and individual liberty more broadly. And so I think we should take great care to observe the potential that a technology like this has for promoting causes like freedom and democracy around the world. And I note that some of my friends here in this room are in fact people doing just that all around the world, using a technology like Bitcoin to promote liberal democracy in places where it's sorely needed. So that's my general view on where I think Bitcoin is today. It's not filled with buzzwords and highfalutin notions of saving the world in all of the ways that it needs to be saved, but I think it can save the world in some of the ways that it needs to be saved. And so that's all I have to say here today to you guys. Bitcoin is non-political risk money, and I think that's a great thing. So thank you so much.